There is a type of person who sits at the head of the table, holds the title, wears the authority like a crown, and yet, when they speak, the room quietly dies inside. Not with rebellion, not with anger, but with something far worse: indifference. And here is the uncomfortable truth that no leadership book will print on its cover. The reason nobody respects certain leaders has almost nothing to do with competence and almost everything to do with a wound they have never bothered to examine. Let that satisfy your curiosity for a moment, because what we are about to explore is not comfortable. It is not a motivational speech, it is a mirror. And mirrors, as you know, do not lie. To understand why some leaders are silently dismissed by the very people they are supposed to guide, we need to go back to something most people overlook. There is a concept in psychology called the shadow self, introduced by Carl Jung. It refers to the parts of our personality we refuse to acknowledge, the traits we bury because they feel too ugly, too weak, too human to display. Now here is where it gets interesting. Most people who seek leadership positions are not drawn to leadership itself. They are drawn to what leadership promises: validation, control, the illusion that if enough people follow you, you must be worthy. This is not ambition, this is compensation. And people can feel it. They may not be able to articulate it. They may not even be consciously aware of it. But every human being is equipped with an ancient radar for authenticity. When someone leads from a place of unresolved insecurity, the people around them detect it, the way animals detect a coming storm. Something feels wrong. The air shifts. Trust quietly evaporates. Think about the leaders you have encountered in your own life, at work, in your family, in your community. There is always that one person who demands respect verbally. They remind you of their position. They correct you not to teach, but to establish dominance. They take credit subtly, deflect blame instinctively, and when challenged, they do not engage with the idea. They attack the person. Now ask yourself, did you ever truly respect that individual, or did you simply comply? Because compliance and respect are two entirely different currencies. Compliance can be bought with a paycheck or enforced with a title. Respect is earned in silence, in the moments when no one is watching, in the decisions that cost something. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said that no one is free who is not master of themselves. And this is the root of the entire problem. Leaders who are not respected are, in most cases, people who have never mastered their own inner world. They are governed by fear disguised as authority, by ego disguised as vision, by insecurity disguised as high standards. And the tragedy is that many of them genuinely believe they are doing a good job. They point to results, to numbers, to achievements, but they fail to notice the one metric that matters most. Do people choose to follow them when they do not have to? There is a phenomenon in organizational psychology known as destructive leadership. Researchers have identified several patterns that consistently produce leaders nobody respects. The first is what psychologists call absentee leadership, the leader who is physically present but emotionally and intellectually checked out. They avoid conflict, avoid decisions, avoid anything that might put them at risk. And strangely enough, studies show that absentee leadership is often more damaging than openly toxic leadership, because at least with a tyrant, people know where they stand. With an absent leader, there is a slow erosion of purpose, a creeping confusion that eats away at morale like rust on iron. The second pattern is the narcissistic leader. And before you picture someone loud and grandiose, understand that narcissism in leadership often wears a very polished mask. It looks like charm in meetings. It sounds like confidence in presentations. But behind closed doors, it reveals itself through an inability to hear criticism, a constant need to be the smartest person in the room, and a subtle but persistent habit of making everything about themselves. Narcissistic leaders do not build teams. They build audiences, and audiences, unlike teams, will leave the moment the show stops being entertaining. But here is the question that most people never think to ask. What if you are that leader? What if the person nobody respects is looking back at you in the mirror? If that question made your stomach tighten, even slightly, stay with me. Because that reaction, that discomfort, is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is trying to wake up inside you. The discomfort is the beginning of awareness, and awareness is the only soil where real change can grow. Let me share something that happens more often than anyone admits. A person works hard, earns a promotion, gets placed in charge of a team, and slowly, without realizing it, begins to lose the very qualities that got them there. The hunger is replaced by defensiveness. The curiosity is replaced by the need to appear certain. The willingness to listen is replaced by the compulsion to speak. It is not because they are bad people. It is because leadership, real leadership, activates every unresolved wound you carry. It puts pressure on your ego, your identity, your deepest fears about whether you are enough. And most people, when placed under that pressure, do not rise. They contract, they protect, they build walls and call them standards. Consider this story. There was a manager at a mid-sized company who was technically brilliant. He knew the product better than anyone. He worked longer hours than his team. He delivered results quarter after quarter. And yet his team turnover was the highest in the company. People would join his department and leave within a year. When asked in exit interviews, the responses were almost identical. He does not listen. He makes you feel small. He takes your ideas and presents them as his own. And when confronted with this feedback, do you know what he said? They just cannot handle high expectations. That sentence, that single deflection, is the entire psychology of a leader nobody respects, compressed into 8 words. It is the refusal to look inward. It is the belief that if people do not follow you, the problem must be with them. And that belief, comfortable as it may feel, is a prison. If this idea has already resonated with you, imagine what comes next. Subscribe so you do not miss this journey, because what we are about to discuss could genuinely change the way you see yourself and everyone around you. Now, let me offer you something more than just a diagnosis. Let me offer you a way through. The first principle of becoming a leader people actually respect is devastatingly simple, and that is exactly why most people skip it. You must become honest with yourself about what you are afraid of. Not the surface fears, not, I am afraid the project will fail, or I am afraid of missing the deadline. The deeper fears. I am afraid that if I show vulnerability, people will see me as weak. I am afraid that if I give credit to others, I will become invisible. I am afraid that if I admit I do not know something, I will lose my authority. These fears are human. They are universal, and they are the invisible architects of every leadership failure you have ever witnessed. The psychologist Brené Brown spent over a decade researching vulnerability and leadership, and her findings shattered a myth that many people still cling to. She found that the most respected leaders were not the ones who appeared invulnerable. They were the ones who had the courage to say, I was wrong, I need help, and I do not know. Not as a performance of humility, but as a genuine expression of their relationship with truth. And here is the paradox that most people cannot accept. Vulnerability does not diminish authority. It establishes it. Because when you show that you can face your own limitations without crumbling, you give everyone around you silent permission to do the same. And that permission, that safety, is the foundation of every team that has ever accomplished something extraordinary. The second principle is learning to separate your identity from your position. This is where philosophy becomes indispensable. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his private journal, never intended for publication, that he reminded himself daily that the purple robe meant nothing, that underneath the title he was just a man made of the same flesh and driven by the same impulses as anyone else. He wrote those words not as self-deprecation, but as self-preservation. Because he understood something that most modern leaders do not. The moment you become your title, you lose your humanity. And the moment you lose your humanity, you lose your ability to connect. And connection, not authority, is what earns respect. The third principle is perhaps the most difficult. You must learn to tolerate being disliked without retaliating. A leader who needs to be liked is a leader who will eventually betray their own values to maintain approval. And a leader who retaliates when disliked is a leader who has confused authority with control. The leaders who are genuinely respected are the ones who can make an unpopular decision, absorb the discomfort of disapproval, and remain steady. Not cold, not indifferent, but steady. There is an enormous difference between being unmoved and being unshakable. The first is a wall, the second is a root system. But there is a secret even deeper than these principles, one that very few people will ever talk about openly. The real reason so many leaders are not respected is that they are performing a version of themselves that does not exist. They are playing a character they think a leader should be. The decisive one, the confident one, the one who always has the answer. And that performance, no matter how polished, creates a subtle but undeniable sense of falseness. Human beings are not fooled by performances. We are wired to detect incongruence between what someone says and what they radiate. When a leader says, "I value your input," but their body language communicates impatience, people believe the body. When a leader says, "We are a team," but makes every decision unilaterally, people believe the pattern. Respect is not given to the person who performs the best version of leadership. It is given to the person who is the most real version of themselves within the role. And this is the revelation that connects everything we have discussed. The leader nobody respects is not a villain. They are a person trapped inside a performance they do not know how to stop. They built the mask so long ago that they have forgotten there is a face beneath it. And every act of dominance, every deflection, every moment of credit stealing or blame shifting is not strength. It is the sound of someone knocking from inside a cage they built themselves. The way out is not another leadership course. It is not a better communication framework. It is the willingness to sit with the terrifying question, who am I when I am not trying to prove anything to anyone? That question, if you let it, will dismantle everything that is false in your leadership and leave only what is real. And what is real, even if it feels smaller, even if it feels less impressive, is the only thing that has ever earned genuine respect. So here is what I want you to carry with you from this conversation. Leadership is not a throne, it is a mirror. And the leaders who are most respected are not the ones who demand that others look up to them. They are the ones brave enough to look honestly at themselves. The title on your door means nothing if the people behind that door feel nothing when you speak. But if you choose truth over performance, connection over control, and growth over comfort, you will not need to ask for respect. It will come to you the way light comes to an open window, naturally, quietly, and without force. If this message found you at the right moment, do something with it. Leave a comment sharing which idea struck you the hardest. Hit that like button because it helps this message reach someone else who is sitting in a leadership role right now, feeling quietly lost. Subscribe to this channel if you want more conversations like this, the kind that do not just inform you, but actually change you. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, a friend, a colleague, someone who carries the weight of leadership without the tools to carry it well, send this to them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is show them a mirror they have been avoiding. Thank you for staying until the end. That itself says something about who you are becoming.